Hey there, CENIMASTER fans! Hope you're ready for some movie magic. Let's dive right in. The movie starts with Ethan Hunt opening a message he received from his direct superior, which is a tape that plays on an old video device. This is because they want to avoid any modern technology, and we'll understand the reason shortly. She informs him that she sent the message herself because she trusts no one else. She thanks him in the message for the 35 years he spent on the Impossible Mission Force team, and for all the sacrifices he and the team made to save the world and humanity. She acknowledges that without his dedication and risking his life, the world would have been a very different place. She apologizes for everyone he lost while serving his country. She asks him for his help one last time, explaining that the entire digital world is in danger due to the invasion of an artificial intelligence virus known as the Entity. She reveals that the world is currently in chaos because of it, with people unable to discern what is real or fake, even governments doubting the news they receive. The bigger problem is that a sect of people has emerged, believing in what the Entity is doing, claiming that the world needs purification, even if it means starting over. They reference the story of Noah and the flood, and the situation turns out to be more serious than they imagined, as some of these believers are among the leaders and officials. She tells Ethan that he must take control of the Entity and eliminate its original source. She reveals that he is the only person who knows its location and that the help he needs is being held by Austrian authorities. Ethan recalls how she saved him before when she was collecting the Entity's key. He still has the key, refusing to hand it over to anyone because he doesn't trust how it will be used. She asks him to hand over the key instead of bearing the guilt of destroying the world. The message self-destructs after it ends. Ethan indeed still has the key. Ethan leaves his hideout to meet his friend Benji. They head into the subway tunnel and arrive at their secret hideout, where they meet Luther. They discuss the Russian submarine that disappeared on its maiden voyage. The submarine, named Sevastopol, was undetectable by any sonar or radar, essentially invisible. Its secret was a device called the Partakov, located in a secure capsule within the submarine. However, the Entity tricked the submarine's crew into firing a torpedo, causing them to destroy themselves. They explain that the Entity can only be defeated using the code from its original source, which is the Partakov, located in the capsule on the sunken submarine. However, the capsule is rigged to explode if tampered with. The key Ethan has is the only way to safely open it. Ethan declares that they need to find Gabriel. They head to Austria, where we see Sasa, Gabriel's assistant, recalling the day things turned against her because she helped Ethan after owing him her life. She is walking under heavy guard with 2 international police officers. 2 guards try to help her escape, but the Interpol officers resist. When Sasa decides to end their lives, a guard stops her. It turns out to be Ethan, whom she recognizes. When Stevie calls for backup, Ethan stops him, saying there's no time to explain as the end of the world is near. Ethan assures him that if they turn him in, no force on Earth will be able to stop the Entity. Stevie looks at his colleague, and Ethan tells him not to worry. The 2 officers lower their weapons. Ethan asks Sasa where Gabriel is, and she directs them to a concert where he will be. Ethan appears at the concert and communicates with Benji, who is in the car outside, surrounded by secret intelligence agents. Benji doubts Gabriel is there, but Ethan is certain. 2 intelligence agents who recognize Ethan approach him, telling him to stay put. As they prepare to report him, Grace, who has joined the Impossible Mission Force, passes between them. In that moment, she manages to steal their radio and weapons. Ethan takes them to a side area and knocks them unconscious. However, 2 more agents appear, targeting Grace. They sedate Ethan, informing him that Gabriel has a special mission for him. When Ethan regains consciousness, he finds himself restrained, and Grace asks him what they should do. As he tries to focus, he notices someone approaching. He tells Grace to stay calm because it looks like they're heading to the slaughterhouse. Indeed, someone enters, and the first person to strike is Gabriel, who orders them not to touch Ethan. Gabriel approaches Grace and taunts Ethan, asking if they should do to her what they did to his wife Julia during the Shanghai mission known as Operation Rabbit's Foot. Gabriel reveals that the Rabbit's Foot Ethan handed to his government was actually the foundation of the Entity, which is now wreaking havoc. Gabriel demands the key, but Ethan insists he let Grace go first. Gabriel refuses, stating there's no time for negotiations. He also reveals that someone dear to Ethan is about to die. Grace interrupts, reminding Ethan of what he said on the train when he tried to retrieve the key. Ethan accuses Gabriel of being abandoned by the Entity after failing to retrieve the key. However, Gabriel claims he has infiltrated Ethan's team and knows their plans. He warns Ethan that resisting will cost him dearly, but cooperating might protect his team. Ethan smirks, removes a fake tooth from his mouth, and warns Gabriel that the tooth contains a deadly substance. If crushed, he will die within 60 seconds, leaving no chance for the key to be retrieved. Gabriel dismisses this as a bluff, demanding the tooth be removed. Ethan refuses, crushes the fake tooth, and begins convulsing. Gabriel's men panic, quickly untying him and attempting to revive him with a defibrillator. Ethan uses the opportunity to grab the defibrillator, incapacitating one of the men and attacking another. Grace seizes the key, but a large man appears. Gabriel orders him not to kill Ethan but to eliminate Grace, who is still trying to free herself. Ethan shields her with his body. Meanwhile, Gabriel makes his escape. Grace eventually frees herself, and Ethan engages in a fight with Gabriel's men. One of the previously incapacitated men regains consciousness, but Grace takes him down this time. Ethan moves to the other side, but Grace also ends up being captured. But Ison sees a large mace in front of him. Suddenly, the man holding it pulls it, and she stands watching the massacre before her. There's banging and crashing until Ison finally takes them all down. He then says, "Let's go catch Gabriel before he escapes," who is already running. They chase after him, but he stops in front of them. He tells him to settle down and says he'll call Ison. But Sasa comes from behind him, and as soon as he sees her, he runs off in another direction while she fires at him. However, she is told by someone that Ison wants him alive, so they all go after him. They find a large box, and Sasa confirms that Gabriel was communicating with the entity through this box. They open the door and enter. As soon as Ison touches it, it opens. And inside is a strange-looking mask connected to the box. Ison wants to discover what it is, but everyone warns him. Nevertheless, he enters the box, which closes on him as he puts on the mask. As soon as the box closes, Ison is restrained, and the entity communicates with him. It shows him its location and says, "You surely know this place." He replies that it's called the Dome of Judgment Day, and that it's located in Congo. The entity tells him to go there and let it begin from there. Ison refuses, so the entity tortures him, saying, "Inside the box, there are no secrets." It shows him parts of his memories, and it seems like the entity knows what he's planning. The scene shifts to Ison holding a senior officer, while the entity reveals that the algorithms, if merged with the entity's original code, would surely destroy it. It accuses him of planning to reach the original code and destroy it. It shows him visions of the future, warning that he is risking everything he loves. Then it reiterates the order to go to the Dome of Judgment Day in Congo and follow its instructions, giving him only two choices: a future with the entity or no future at all. It also reveals that Gabriel has become an outcast because he wants to control the entity, and that he is also on his way to kill his friend, Loser. The entity gives Ison 4 days to carry out its orders or it will destroy the entire planet. Ison's restraints are released, and he exits the box, unsure whether what he experienced was real or an illusion. When he regains his composure, he tells them he knows everything now and asks for a pen. He writes down instructions for them to go to the North Pole while he rushes to save Loser, who is in the ICU. But Gabriel reaches him first. Ison races against time to catch up. Gabriel notices the memory device around Loser's neck and Loser wakes up, but finds no one beside him except for the nurse, who is killed. He leaves his bed and finds a strange device he doesn't understand. Gabriel appears, locks him in, chains him up, and shows him the memory device, telling him to inform Ison that he will be waiting for him. Then he leaves. The device turns out to be a massive bomb with less than 4 minutes remaining. Ison arrives to find Loser trying to deactivate the bomb. As always, Loser remains calm and explains that it's a plutonium bomb, which, if it explodes, will turn the entire city into ash. He's trying to separate the core from the internal detonator. He also reveals that Gabriel took the memory device and tells Ison to go after him. Ison hesitates, not wanting to leave his lifelong friend behind, but Loser insists, saying there are far more lives at stake. Ison bids him farewell and goes after Gabriel. Loser successfully disconnects the wires linked to the core while Ison tries to escape the tunnel using an accessory. The bomb explodes, and Loser surely dies. Ison emerges from the tunnel, grieving for his friend. He is approached by international police who take the key from him, arrest him, and put him on a private plane for extradition. He inquires about his colleague, Steve, asking if he's alive. They confirm he is and mention that they know about his father, Phillips, who was once the head of the Impossible Mission team. They accuse him of betraying his team and being responsible for their deaths. Ison counters, saying that the entity must have manipulated him into this state of hatred. He proposes a single way to defeat the entity: cooperation. But Jim refuses, accusing Ison of deceit, and walks away. Eventually, Ison is taken to the intelligence headquarters in Virginia, where he is interrogated. They blame him for the entity's control over nearly all nuclear bases worldwide, with only 4 countries, Russia, America, China, and another, remaining unaffected. They accuse him of breaking into the state's black vault, stealing files on all agents, and being responsible for the Kremlin explosion. Despite their accusations, they acknowledge that he might be their last hope to stop the chaos. Their meeting is interrupted by a high-ranking official who examines the key and asks Eisen what he needs to complete his mission. He requests the key, a nuclear aircraft carrier, and full command over the ship. When the official hesitates, he warns that failing to act could result in random nuclear missiles being launched worldwide. She reluctantly agrees, but before she can finalize the decision, news arrives that the United Kingdom's nuclear systems have been compromised. She then orders Eisen's imprisonment but secretly arranges for his escape through a hidden door, sending him the key and a message of trust. She reminds him that he has only 72 hours to complete his mission and gives him a sealed envelope, telling him he'll know what to do when the time comes. Eisen heads off to fulfill his task, the planes he had requested. He hands the envelope to the leader. She opens it and finds my signature inside. She meets with Ethan and learns that she will fulfill all his requests. However, she also discovers that there is a Russian aircraft carrier in the sea as well. She understands that even the smallest mistake could lead to a new global nuclear war within seconds. They gather together, and he explains his plan to her, which is to locate the submarine, most likely in the Arctic, specifically in the Bering Sea region. He informs her that his team is already heading to the Arctic while they speak. Once they reach the submarine's coordinates, they are supposed to send them to Ethan, who will then be able to reach the submarine and extract the Partakov from it. If they succeed, he will return and send them his location coordinates so they can come and rescue him. The plan seems crazy and risky to everyone listening, but there is no room for hesitation. The Mission Impossible team actually reaches the Arctic and meets a man named Donlu, who is in charge of the seismic center there. They want to review the sound recordings from the day the submarine sank to pinpoint its exact location. However, they are surprised to find that Russian soldiers have taken control of the center. Meanwhile, the pilots inform Ethan that the Russian fleet is present and that they have entered its extended zone. This puts them in danger, and they realize that the fuel they have is only sufficient for the return trip. They ask if any coordinates have been received on their communication devices, but they are told that the entire area is under jamming signals, making it impossible to receive messages. Ethan requests that they hover for just 5 minutes, no more. When they comply, Russian fighter jets appear in front of them as a warning. They tell him that if anything goes wrong, a world war will break out in 10 minutes. Ethan makes an unconventional decision, jumps out of the plane, and lands in the water. He watches as the plane he was on continues and is intercepted by the fighter jets. Ethan finds himself alone in the middle of the sea with no assistance. Suddenly, divers emerge from the water, and he loses consciousness. They take him aboard a submarine, where he is freezing from the cold. Fortunately, it turns out to be an American submarine tasked with taking him to the Russian submarine. They tell him he must be insane to have done what he did. When asked about his mission, he says it is classified information. He requests to be taken further north, explaining that his team will send him the exact coordinates of where he needs to go. The submarine crew warns him that his actions could provoke the Russian bear. Meanwhile, Donlu speaks to everyone present and explains that even if the recordings they are asking for still exist, the device needed to play them is missing. He realizes that the Russians are also searching for the submarine's location, just like them. Ethan's diving team explains to him the dangers of his plan, telling him that surviving it would be nothing short of a miracle. Donlu, sitting next to him, remarks that they will never find the recordings. However, it turns out that he has memorized the coordinates of the submarine's location. He calls out to his wife, saying it's time to feed their dog. Seeking help, she approaches Grace and they go together under guard. Meanwhile, Ethan prepares himself for his mission, but one of the supporters of the entity and its ideology of human cleansing attempts to kill him. Ethan notices and escapes, engaging in a fight with his attacker. Simultaneously, Donlu's wife strikes one of the guards, and Grace intervenes immediately. A shootout ensues, and without hesitation, Sasa decides to take down those around her. Chaos erupts, and the Russians clash with the Americans, leading to a fiery confrontation. Donlu rushes to send the coordinates via his communication device, and the submarine receives the message. Ethan tries to resolve his situation, but one of the divers intervenes to end the confrontation. The Russians manage to flee the area, and the situation calms down. However, the coordinates received point to an entirely different location, 1,000 miles away, near the Cape of Good Hope, on the opposite side of the globe. Ethan realizes that the coordinates are reversed. Once corrected, he identifies the correct target and redirects the submarine accordingly. He prepares to descend to the sunken submarine, gathering all the information he needs. He dives into the depths, which are about 500 feet deep. Ethan reaches the submarine and enters it, finding areas that have not yet been flooded. This causes a shift in the submarine's weight, leaving it precariously perched on the edge of a trench. It begins to slip. Ethan manages to reach the sonar capsule, retrieves the key, opens the cover, and takes the Partakoff, who holds the code. He attempts to leave, but a missile closes the door, forcing him to exit through a torpedo tube. However, he gets disoriented and has to abandon his suit to escape. The submarine sinks into the trench, but Ethan escapes at the last moment. Unfortunately, his suit gets caught on the submarine, threatening to drag him down. He decides to let go of the suit and surfaces without it. The distance is vast, and his body cannot endure the strain. He loses consciousness, his body freezing to the icy surface of the water. He dreams of his wife saving him, but it is Grace who revives him. She succeeds in restarting his heart. Upon regaining consciousness, he asks about the Partakoff, who is handed to him. Grace asks what they should do next, and he replies that they must find Gabriel. The team sets out, and all that remains to destroy the entity is the toxic memory unit Gabriel stole from Luther before he died. Ethan's plan, as always, is beyond logic and reason. He wants to make Gabriel unknowingly part of their team, giving him the Partakoff to merge it with the toxic memory unit. At that moment, they will intervene and eliminate the entity. However, everyone on the plane warns him that he is risking the lives of millions. He responds with his usual phrase, "They must trust him." They arrive in Congo, but find the area deserted. They proceed cautiously, entering a tunnel. Meanwhile, it is revealed that the Russians have also been hacked and are now under the control of the entity. Everyone gathers around the leader, informing her that Ethan has disappeared, if not dead, or has fallen into Russian hands. They deliberate on what to do next, and the prophecy strikes, and how will it happen, and what loss could occur if that happens. At the same time, Ethan and his team are still walking in the tunnel. Ethan tells them that the servant he wanted to use is in a nearby location. They split into two teams, and Ethan and his group reach the servant's location. He tells them to return to the others. When Grace warns him about Gabriel, he tells her not to worry because he wants him alive. Indeed, they return, and Ethan sees a large group of bombs resembling the one that killed his friend Luther. Gabriel appears with his men and tells Ethan, "I told you I would win in the end." He asks him for the Partakoff, and Ethan hands it over. But a surprise happens when Jim appears with his men. Gabriel's men activate the bomb. Ethan sees his team captured, and thus Ethan's plan completely falls apart. The head of intelligence appears, revealing that he orchestrated the entire night. He asks Ethan about his plan. Ethan says he intended to give the Partakoff to Gabriel and let him destroy the entity. Meanwhile, someone is stealthily killing the guards without anyone noticing. It turns out that the Partakoff is needed to either destroy or control the entity. But the toxic pieces with Gabriel are also required. Suddenly, Gabriel's men start shooting, scattering everyone. The Partakoff returns to Ethan's hands, but Gabriel attempts to escape. Benji tells Ethan to chase after him while they handle the servant. Even when Grace asks about the bomb, he tells her not to worry and to focus on Gabriel. Ethan chases after him in a car, flying off with it. Benji is injured but reassures Grace that he knows how to manage. A fierce chase ensues inside the tunnels. Gabriel's men try to eliminate Ethan, resulting in their cars flipping over. Ethan escapes the tunnel and sees Gabriel taking off in a plane. Another plane follows and catches up with him. Ethan clings to it and struggles to climb aboard. Meanwhile, the rest of the team tries to deactivate the bomb. They manage to separate the detonator from the core, but the bomb itself will still explode. Don decides to carry out the suicidal task, with Steve staying behind with him, while the others head to the servant's chamber. Ethan reaches the plane, fights Gabriel, and knocks him unconscious. The plane descends toward the ground, but Ethan manages to adjust its course. Gabriel sees this and falls onto the pilot, causing chaos. Ethan takes control just as Benji instructs Grace to activate the servant's chamber. She performs a procedure on his lungs so he can breathe. Outside, the men are still defusing the bomb. Meanwhile, preparations for a nuclear war are underway. Before the leader gives the order for the nuclear strike, she changes her mind. However, one of her subordinates, a follower of the entity, attacks, but is subdued and killed. The Secretary of Defense dies as well. At the same time, the entity infiltrates America, gaining control over all the world's nuclear reactors and initiating its destructive journey. Grace prepares to trap the entity, provided Ethan fulfills his mission. The signal will turn green when successful. Meanwhile, a fierce aerial battle occurs between Ethan and Gabriel. Ethan clings to Gabriel's plane as Gabriel tries to shake him off by flipping the aircraft. Ethan perseveres, reaching Gabriel and striking him. Gabriel spins the plane to throw Ethan off, but Ethan manages to grab the toxic piece. He unbuckles Gabriel's seatbelt, causing the plane to flip. Gabriel falls from the plane but has a parachute. He lets go to descend but crashes into the plane's shadow and dies. Ethan returns to the burning plane, with each team member counting down to complete their tasks. He dons a parachute and jumps from the plane. As he opens the parachute, he attempts to attach the toxic piece to the Partikov, but his parachute catches fire. With only 30 seconds left, the green signal lights up. Grace successfully traps the entity, cutting off power worldwide. However, everyone is safe, and power is restored. All nations regain control of their weapons. Ethan, using a backup parachute, lands safely. He listens to a recorded message from his friend Luther, stored in the memory, where Luther expresses his unwavering belief in Ethan's ability to complete the mission and save the world. Ethan listens to the message. If you enjoyed our movie summary, support us with a like and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget